to the Port City Plate Podcast, presented by Bienville Bikes Food Tour. The Port City Plate Podcast, serving up the food, history, and people of Mobile, Alabama for people who love the Port City. I'm your host, Chris Andrews, and today we have a very special guest on the podcast, Frankie Little. Frankie is the owner, mastermind behind one of the most popular restaurants in all of Mobile, and that's Roosters. Located on Dauphin Street. I mean, literally the heart of downtown Mobile is where Roosters is located at. Just really super excited about this episode. Frankie and Roosters are fresh off a visit from Guy Fieri and Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, and they got a huge Cinco de Mayo block party coming up, and just a lot of cool things. So, Frankie, welcome to the Port City Plate Podcast.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Excited about this one. So, I just kind of start by, briefly telling us about, where you grew up and, kind of what childhood was like for you.
Yeah, I grew up about an hour down the road in Foley, Alabama. Grew up on a small family farm. And at that time, in the 80s, Foley, it looks a lot different now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It's crazy. I grew up on a farm very close to where OWA is now, so on County Road 20, pretty much across the street from where OWA is now. So when I was growing up, it was a sleepy little 2-lane road I'd ride my bike on, and that was just woods and dirt roads. Yeah, it was. I mean, it's just incredible how that area has changed during the course of my life. But so grew up on a farm, very kind of Andy Griffith, Opie, just fishing in the pond and helping my grandma pick beans and corn and blackberries. That was a big thing that my grandparents started probably a little bit after I was born in the early 80s. Started growing different types of blackberries, and it became that was my grandfather's retirement, was he started growing blackberries. And so just row after row of all these different types of blackberries. And so that was my summer job, was picking blackberries, because we had like a roadside vegetable stand and fruit stand. So it was like a you pick, we pick kind of thing. And so I grew up, doing farm stuff. We had cows, pigs, chickens. That's one of the reasons I named my restaurant Roosters, all in our backyard. And so it was, when you grow up in a certain situation, you don't realize it's unique because that's all you know until you grow up, and then you start talking to other people, and they not a lot of people grow up that way. So I really look back fondly on the way I grew up,
right?
In that way.
Would you say your love of food maybe came out of that?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Once again, when you're in it, you don't really see it until you look back. Now, I'm so nostalgic about eating and the way I grew up eating. My grandparents, we had a machine shop on our farm also, and so my dad was a welder, and my grandfather was a machinist, and it was right down the road from my grandparents' house, which was the garden was all around their house, and so every day, Monday through Friday, every day, like clockwork, at 12 o'clock, dinner was ready. Well, we called it dinner, it was
right.
lunch, but
my grandparents did the same thing. Dinner, they called what we call lunch, dinner, and then supper was
exactly. And so it was like clockwork. 12 o'clock, you could set your watch to it. You show up. My grandmother would come in from the garden at 11, start working on lunch, and lunch was ready at 12. And I mean, I just so nostalgic looking back on that, just that I could just walk over to my grandparents and just spend that time with them and help my grandmother get lunch ready and set the table. And it was just all from our farm. It was our beef, it was our chicken, it was our pork, it was our potatoes, corn, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions, everything. And so what a special, unique way to grow up. And don't get me wrong, it was the 80s. I was still going home and making Hot Pockets in the microwave.
That's right.
I'm not going to say I was completely pure and just organic. But that was a large part of growing up, or my food memories of growing up. And then there was a little twist to it. My grandmother grew up in Central America, and she was American. Her family was from Boston, but her father worked for a company that had contracts in Central America. And so she would spend part of the year in Boston and part of the year in, it might be Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica. There was different countries that they moved around to, but she developed a taste for Latin American food growing up, part of her life down there. And so she cooked some of that type of stuff. It was mixed in, like we'd have plantains with maybe steak or something else that she was cooking, So, she added some elements in that as a kid I didn't even realize it was something that not everybody ate. But I mean, I was probably one of the few kids in Foley eating some things like plantains and stuff like that at that time, and definitely American kids, I should say. And then so I just I lost my track on where I was going with that, but.
So how did you end up, going from the farm, and how did you end up, what happened after high school and college, or did you go to college? What, landing in the restaurant industry? Like, what was your path there?
Yeah, so my path there was a lot of twists and turns, and did not involve college. I graduated high school, I would say barely. The last couple of years, like a lot of entrepreneurs and business people, we maybe didn't do so well in high school. So I was a really good student up until the last couple of years, and I really kind of checked out, I guess you could say. And so I graduated and didn't go to college. I was planning on it, but that's not the cards I was dealt. I had some family turmoil. In my senior year of high school, my parents got divorced, and it just kind of sent my kind of path in a different direction. I was actually visiting colleges and planning on going, and I didn't. And in hindsight, I'm kind of glad I didn't, honestly, because I would have probably taken on a lot of student loan debt to go to college, and that would have. So I'm thankful that I don't have a lot of student loan debt hanging over my head, but it did mean that I did get sidetracked for several years, where I just kind of bounced around, had no direction. I played music, and I played in bands, and I did tour around with some bands a little bit, and had a lot of fun doing that. And I would say I partied a lot, probably. And but I did also, I was really into I got really into like bohemian kind of lifestyle, like Jack Kerouac and stuff like that on the road, and I got really into like wanting to just kind of drift, so I spent several years hitchhiking actually around the country, and made my way through Texas, different parts of Texas, and Mexico, and California, and up the West Coast, and over the course of several years, I kind of bounced back and forth between coming back here and going back out on the road, and just kind of living I guess a bohemian lifestyle, I guess you could say. And I would work here and there, mainly construction jobs or landscaping and stuff like that. And in my early 20s, kind of settled back into this area. I was living in Gulf Shores, and I met my now wife, Faye, and she lived here in Mobile. And I had worked in restaurants a little bit. I had like bus tables at some beach restaurants at the beach, and kind of waited tables a little bit at the beach, and moved in with her here in Mobile, and she got me a job at La Pizzeria, which if listeners have been in Mobile a while, they might remember La Pizzeria. It was this cool little neighborhood Italian place in the Linecoff district. And that's where I got serious about the restaurant business, I guess. I was about 24 at that time. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm not getting any younger. I didn't go to college. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I know I don't want to, not that there's anything wrong with manual labor at all, but I just knew, I was like, I just can't, I need to find something.
Right.
And I got into the restaurant business at La Pizzeria and just really started getting into it. I was just like, man, this is cool. I like this job. I get to work around cool people. I get to, the time goes by fast. I've worked retail before, and time creeps by. and so in the restaurant business, it's fast paced, and it's just, before you know it, 5-6 hours goes by. And
right.
Whoa. And also you get to make some pretty decent cash. I think for not having a college degree, I was making some, decent money, not great, but decent. And getting to learn about food and learn about wine and cocktails and just kind of have fun at work, I just was like, you know what? Out of everything I've done, I really enjoyed the restaurant business, so I'm just going to go all in on it. And the guy that I worked for at La Pizzeria, Todd, the owner, he said a few things that stuck in my mind over the years that I've repeated. But one of them was, everybody's trying to do. Typically, most people in the restaurant business are trying to be something else. They're trying to be a writer or an actor or a musician or whatever it is. He's like, but while you're at the restaurant, why not just put it all into that? I mean, be the best. Why not? I mean, if you're going to do something, do it, So if you're going to be a waiter, man, be the best waiter at that restaurant. If you're going to be a bartender, be the best bartender. If you're going to be a shoe shine person. Be the best shoe shine person. It doesn't matter if you're going to do something. Go all in. And so I kind of took that to heart. I was like, maybe I'm still trying to be a rock star or whatever, but in the meantime, while I'm waiting tables, I want to be the best. And so I got real into it. I just got real into food and got real into the culture of restaurants, and continued doing that for several years there, and then ended up working at a few other kind of institutions here in Mobile. I ended up bartending at Callahan's for several years. So I was, working the more kind of fine dining Italian place, neighborhood place, and then I would get to kind of take off the button-up shirt and tie and get to work this dive bar, this Irish neighborhood dive bar. And so it was fun getting that, kind of different aspects of the restaurant business. And then the Bull, which actually is pretty much across the street from where we are right now, I ended up getting a job there and working there as well. And that was more of a fine dining Southwest steakhouse kind of place. Right. And wonderful, great chef, great food. And once again, just kept getting more into learning about the business. And then I even did a small stint bartending at the Mobile Country Club. So I'm telling you all this to say that I was just kind of getting all these different experiences in the food and beverage and restaurant business. And so that was I guess my college education, you could say. I was learning on the fly or in the real world, and learning what to do and what not to do. I think it's extremely important as a business owner to learn what not to do, just as important as learning what to do.
Yeah, you need to see all the bad or too, right?
See the bad, see the mistakes. Yeah, see the mistakes. And so,
what was the point where you were like, all right, I'm set out, I want to open my own restaurant?
I guess probably I toyed around with the idea probably in my late 20s, after being in the restaurant business for, a few years. It was kind of more just like kind of small talk or kind of in the back of my head. But the reality is I would have not have been prepared at that age, I think, or that time for me. I'm not saying other people at that age can't do it. I mean, there's people that are great restaurant owners that are, younger than that. But just for me, because I got started kind of late, some people get in the restaurant business at 13 or 16 or something, but I got started more in my early 20s. And so, I'm glad that whatever idea I had at that time didn't work out. Because I don't know if I would have made it. It's, success is all about luck and timing sometimes, and sometimes when things don't work out, there's a reason they don't work out. And, anyway, I've learned that over time. But, so I was, like I said, it was kind of in the back of my mind. And then in my early 30s, by then I started having kids. I had my daughter at 29, my first daughter at 29, and started to get kind of more serious about my future. It was like, okay, well, now I really do want to like kind of build something, not just, I didn't want to wake up one day, 55-year-old and just be like, man, I should have done this or I could have done that. And not that there's anything wrong with, everybody has a different journey, right? But I personally just didn't want to wake up and be like still working for other people. And not that there's anything wrong with working for other people. I just personally didn't see that as my path. I was like, I wanted to, I've always been a little hard-headed and I guess I just was like, I just want to do things my own way. I worked for other people and some were awesome. Everybody I worked for was awesome. But there was definitely, even the awesome ones, there was things they did and I was like, I wouldn't do it that way. And it would kind of bug me a little bit. Like, I don't want to do I think things should be done this way. And so that's the great thing about being a business owner. You live and die by your own decisions. Yeah. And it can be scary, but also for me and my personality, I guess, I like that. But I could see some people, that scaring them. But I was like, I want to live and die by my own decisions. Right. And if I die, if I mess up, I mess up. Yep. But it makes me feel better to know that it's my decision, not somebody else's.
So what were the steps that led to you opening your restaurant there at Dauphin Street that you have now?
Yeah, so it's kind of my early to mid 30s, around 33, 34, I started thinking more seriously about it. and started really kind of talking about it more, just kind of out loud. It wasn't just in my mind. It was like, hey, I really love tacos. I was a big taco fan. I lived in Austin, Texas, and had really developed a love for like authentic street tacos, and so I was like, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I love cooking that kind of stuff at my house. I would have friends ask me to cook, taco grill outs for their birthdays and stuff like that. And so I was like, well, I know I can do that.
Yeah.
and I also thought there was a need for it in downtown Mobile.
Huge need, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so, and I had that background also from my grandmother. And so I was just kind of, and from traveling in Mexico and Costa Rica and Nicaragua and even, like Texas and California and stuff, where you find a lot of that more fresh kind of Latin and Mexican flavor, and so I, had been thinking about it and talking about it and kind of bouncing around, and then a few things led to it happening. One was I was approached by somebody that wanted to open a World of Beer here in Mobile, and a World of Beer, in case you don't know, it's a chain franchise beer restaurant concept, kind of like a Buffalo Wild Wings or like something like that.
I feel like I've seen it like Disney World or something like that. Maybe
yeah,
something like that.
They have
like
a big one in Orlando.
Okay,
yeah, they have a really big one. Yeah, and so they started in Tampa, is where they originated from. So I got hired to be the GM of a World of Beer that was going to open in Mobile, and I'm still friends with the guy that hired me. He's a great guy, but it was him and a business partner decided to be World Beer franchisees and bring one to Mobile, and they needed a GM. They hired me, and we went to Tampa twice for two different conventions and seminars and stuff like that. And so I went through this whole training program. Remember, I'd never really done corporate before. I'd only done mom and pop kind of places. So I'm telling this story because it taught me some things, because that process of like going through their training, this very kind of corporate training, because the CEO of World Beer was the ex-CEO of Outback Steakhouse. Okay. So they came from like big time corporate money and big time corporate training style. And so I went through that process with them, and then we had 3 locations here in Mobile fall through. Each time I was devastated. Oh my gosh, this location, we thought we were going to open, and then it fell through. And then the second one fell through, and then the third one fell through. And each time it was devastating, but in hindsight, looking back, that led me to open Roosters, because when the third one fell through, they gave up on Mobile.
Really?
And one of the business partners ended up going and opening in Tuscaloosa, and he's still open now. And then the other business partner got out, and then he's here in Mobile. He's a real estate broker, commercial real estate broker. And so through that experience of not only learning kind of, how a big corporate place like that is kind of operated, I've definitely gleaned some like insight from that experience. But then also just it not opening allowed me to think of like, okay, well, see, I was going to do that because I had kids, and I was thinking like, man, I need to get like a job with a good salary, stability, and some benefits and stuff, and and so some stability. And so that's why I decided to take that path. And then it fell through, and of course, like I said, I was devastated. But in hindsight, I'm like, man, I'm so glad that happened, because it led to all this other stuff that's happened to me since then. So that happened, and then I was kind of like, still working at some local restaurants, but that really kicked me in the butt after that. I was like, you know what? I need to do this. I need to figure out a way to do it. I don't know how to do it. I don't have money. But I'm going to figure out a way to make this dream come true. And so I just started talking to people. Really, that's one of my strengths, I think, is just talking to people. I like to know people and network. And so I just started talking to different people and just kind of, hey, I've got this idea. I think this would be cool. I was making burritos and tacos at my house and showing people, and I went to the chamber, and because I was like, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start a business. I don't know anybody. I don't know how to do it. And so I went to the chamber and talked to somebody. I was like, what do I do? I want to start a restaurant. How do I do it? And they put me in touch with somebody through the city that helps people start businesses, a guy named Mel Washington. And Mel was like, you need a business plan. Here's how to make a business plan. All right, you need to find people to show the business plan to. So I made the business plan and showed it to 3 people. 2 people said, yep, I'm in. One guy was the main financier, you could say. They were silent investors, so he was the main silent investor, and then I had another minor one. And they said, yeah, we love it. We believe in you. We trust you. One of the investors was a guy I had a 15-minute conversation with about how cool it would be to have a burrito restaurant in downtown Mobile probably 2 or 3 years before.
Is that right?
A literally 15-minute conversation in front of the recycling center on Government Street, which is now where Stokely's is. And this 15-minute conversation 2 years prior turned into him being an investor.
Wow.
So you just never know. I tell my kids that, man, like, talk to everybody.
Right.
You just don't know. You don't know where, who's going to help you and how it's going to happen and how you might help other people. It's the way things get done. And it going back to me not going to college, I'm like, man, I'm so glad, because I learned now, the older I get, I'm like, man, there are so many ways to be successful in life, and it's not all based around money, and it's based around relationships, and yes, that can lead to money,
right?
But it's really based around relationships, and you know, we all help each other, you know. And so anyway, I got sidetracked there, but so anyway, I put this business plan together, showed it to three people, 2 people said yes. And then I was like, okay, well, now I need to really figure this out. And so I just started. I knew I wanted to be downtown 100%. I didn't even consider being anywhere else. And I started just looking around. I found that it's funny how serendipity happens sometimes. You know, things just fall into place. I saw this for lease sign at a spot further down Dauphin, closer to the haberdasher, where it ended up being Foy years later. But,
yep.
But I saw for lease sign. I called the number, and it was my now landlord, David Naiman. I said, hey, I'm looking at this sign, this for lease sign. He said, oh, man, you don't want that space. What you want is, just yesterday, the owner of Pita Pit called me. Pita Pit was where Roosters is now. He said that he called me just yesterday and said he wants to break his lease. And he's like, you should go talk to him. He was like, it's already got a kitchen. It's already done. You just,
yeah.
Turnkey. And I was like, really? That's cool. So he gave me his number, called the guy, and that's what happened. I said, look, man, I want to open a restaurant. He said, well, I want to close one. And I said, all right, well, let's do this. So we worked a deal out, and he closed Pita Pit. I bought all his equipment and tables and chairs and everything. And then I just had to do some cosmetic kind of stuff. It was I didn't have to knock down walls or install things. It was pretty much all there.
Guys, that's incredible timing.
I mean, isn't it? I mean, that's why I call it serendipity. It's like sometimes, the older I get, the more I just see that in life. Like, things just sometimes just fall into place.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to put action into it. I mean, nothing's going to happen from nothing. You got to put things into it. But if you put things in, if you just go out there and talk and just put your feelers out there and just meet people, you just things happen.
Yep.
I don't know. It just sort of fall into place sometimes. And so I worked the deal out with him, and like I said, we just had to do cosmetic stuff, and we were open within a couple months. I mean, it really happened very fast.
Yeah.
It was, in fact, Mel, the guy that from the chamber hooked me up with, that told me about, you know, starting a business plan or creating a business plan. He said he uses me an example when he does speeches to groups and stuff, because people will say, well, how long does it take to start a business? And he's like, well, I know one guy that did it in like a month. He's like, but typically it takes, you know, a long time. But
yeah, usually when you see a restaurant coming soon sign, it usually means 9 months.
9 months is 9 months is typical. And I shouldn't say a month we did, because I got my funding from the investors in August of 2016. I got the key to the building in October of 2016, and we opened in January of 2017. So not quite. I mean, it was just within a few months. Mel actually gives an example of me getting the funding. From the time I created the business plan to getting the funding was about a month and a half.
Okay, yeah.
So that's what he's talking about, is the time frame from creating the business plan to actually somebody saying, okay, yes, let's do this, and here's the money. Because like I said, I did not have money. And here's a little side note too. The main investor, when I present to him, he said, I love this. I love you. You're a hard worker. I love the concept. I love the idea. Go see if a bank will give you a loan. Before I invest, go see if a bank will give you a loan. I went to 3 different banks, and all of them said the same thing.
No way, right?
Well, they all said, love it. You have experience. You know, you check all the boxes except for money. which is funny because I'm going there to ask for money. But the banks, they want some kind of something to back it up.
Right.
And the only thing I had was my house, and I was like, I'm not putting my house
Yep.
up. I can't do that. I had to, a wife and kids.
Right.
And I was like,
There
I can't put my house up. That was the only thing I had to back up the loan. And so, but they said every other check, you check every other box. You have experience. You have a great concept. We think you'll be successful, but we can't give you the money without something to back it up. And so I went back to the investor and I told him that. I said, look, I went to 3 banks. This is what they all told me. And he said, okay, well, I'll do it. and then the other guy too, the more minor investor said, yep, I'm in. So, So
how long did it take you to craft the menu? Because, I mean, you hadn't worked in any Mexican restaurants or Latin American restaurants up until that point. So how difficult was that?
The bull was,
okay.
I guess, Mexican adjacent,
okay.
Southwest and and so I had that experience. And then through living in Austin, Texas, and just traveling, just eating. I also just absorbed all the Food Network TV shows, Anthony Bourdain, big fan of Anthony Bourdain, and travel shows. And so I just watched that stuff. I read all his books and, any kind of literature I could get on cooking and food and restaurants, I would read. So I guess it was self-educated, you would call it, or something. And so, I didn't go to culinary school or anything like that. I just, once again, learned in real time. Every restaurant I worked at, which I did work in kitchens, I didn't always wait tables. In fact, I've worked dish pit, cooking, bartending, managing, waiting tables. I've kind of done every little bit of the restaurant business, which I think if you're going to own a restaurant, you absolutely have to. You need to know what it's like from washing dishes and bussing tables all the way up to managing.
Right.
You got to know every
Not
aspect.
just being a chef, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's way more to it than that.
Yep.
And so, so when it came to making the menu, and I consulted with some chef friends of mine. Actually, the chef from the Bull, he helped me consult on the initial menu. And so it was a little bit of this and a little bit of that, like a gumbo, I guess.
Yeah, I like it.
A little bit of this and a little bit of that. Yeah.
What about sourcing the ingredients to kind of maintain that Latin American authenticity? Like, was that difficult?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, to source locally, yeah. I mean, you're not going to get avocados local. You're not going to get limes local, and that's a big part. You can get tomatoes local certain times of year in limited quantity. I mean, so and the amount of tomatoes we go through, we have to get in bulk, and we have to get a lot, all year long. And so, so we for local produce and meat, we try our best as much as possible to get local stuff, and maybe even if we just have to do specials with stuff. But for the bulk of the menu, I mean, like I said, avocados don't grow locally. And we are affected by things that happen in Mexico. Cartels take over avocado farms, and all of a sudden it's hard for us to get avocados, or they're expensive.
That's something you don't think about.
Man, it happens.
When you're a consumer.
It's crazy. Yeah, when you're a consumer, you don't think about it. I get updates from the produce company, like emails like, hey, just so you know, limes are going to be expensive for the next few weeks because this, this drug cartel is taking over this area or something. It's crazy, but it's reality. Everything has to come from something, from somewhere. It doesn't magically appear. It has to grow or be made somewhere. And so, we're affected by that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, as far as like using local, we try as much as possible to use as much as we can.
Yeah. One way I know you use local is with your corn tortillas. And we were talking about that before we started recording. How did that come about?
Several years ago, I met Josh, who is one of the owners. Him and his twin brother own Bayou Cora Farms in Bon Secours. I met him, I'm not sure where we met, maybe at like a farm-to-table event or a farmer's market or something like that. And so kind of just struck up a little conversation at that point. And they grow heirloom corn it's heirloom corn that their great-great-great-grandfather brought to Bon Secours in the 1870s. And it's been grown on that farm ever since. And so him and his brother take this corn and they mill it. They make grits and cornmeal and corn flour. And so I talked to him about seeing if we can make masa, corn flour used for tortillas. And we kind of vaguely talked about it a couple years ago. And it was like, oh, yeah, we could try to do that. We need to look into it and stuff. And then about a year or so ago, maybe a little over a year ago, I met him again at a farm, like a farm-to-table event. And he had a booth set up there, and I was like, "Hey man, what's going on? We need to, I would love to still make this happen." And he was like, "Yeah, man." And around that same time, I had started to get our tortillas made at a tortilleria in Daphne called E&H Tortilleria, and the owner Geraldo, really really great guy. I was like, I wonder if we could talk to Geraldo about them making the tortillas from your cornmeal or corn flour. And so we arranged a meeting. I put it together. We all three of us met at the Tortilleria, and he brought a sample of the corn flour, and we gave it to Geraldo. They made tortillas, and they were great. And we're like, let's do it.
Very cool.
And so now our corn tortillas are 100% local. The heirloom corn is grown in Bon Secours. They delivered the corn flour to Daphne. To the Tortilleria, they make our tortillas and deliver it to us in Mobile.
Nice.
So we have this little supply chain for our corn tortillas.
That's really cool.
Local. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff, and I really am happy to be able to have a business that does that.
Yeah, that makes me want to only get the corn tortillas when I go to Roosters.
Yep, exactly. And that's what I want people to feel like.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with flour. Flour has its place,
Yeah.
but for certain tacos especially, it's like corn. You got to go with corn.
All right, so which ones? What would you say have to have a corn tortilla?
Carne asada, steak.
Why is that?
Just the flavor, in my opinion, with the steak is just unparalleled. I mean, it's just sure, one with the flour is going to taste good, but with the corn, it's just going to taste great. Especially with those heirloom corn, because it just has such a heightened corn flavor. It's just going to taste really good with the steak. I think really pretty much any red meat and chicken and pork. So the carnitas pork. The seafood I think it's good with the seafood, but the flour is also really good with the seafood. I don't know why. The flour just with the fish tacos, I think is great.
Yeah.
But generally for the most part, I would go with corn tortillas.
Yeah.
I mean, even the fish with the corn is great too, but I could see somebody wanting it with flour and stuff.
Right. Yeah. So you're just off a really cool appearance with the Food Network. Mm-hmm. Guy Fieri came down and had a film to show with you, diners, drive-ins, and dives, and you've had great success. I think right there at your location on Dauphin Street. But I think that's just going to explode your popularity in my mind. I hope it does for you. But how did all that come about?
They decided they were coming to this area. And I think give a shout out to Panini Pete for that. I think he's kind of friends.
Was he kind of in his ear
with,
with that? Maybe?
Yeah, he was in his ear like, man, you need to come back. You need to come back to this area. Come back.
There really hadn't been a whole lot. I mean, I know
he had come to Baldwin County. Yeah, he had come to, and that's how Pete got to know him. But he didn't come to Mobile, and so he was like, man, you got to come to Mobile. Got to come to Mobile. And so they said, okay, yeah, we're gonna come to Mobile. So what they do is their producers send out a mass email they basically go online. Pick out a bunch of restaurants that they think might work, and they send out emails. And out of that, maybe half the restaurants respond because some restaurants aren't paying. They might be not looking at their email, or
From my experience, that's true.
Yeah, I have. Oh, I bet. Yeah, I have the ability to. I have. A few years ago, I stepped away and started doing financial planning. So I still own Roosters. But I have managed a management team that runs the day-to-day operations. But that allows me. What I focus on with Roosters now is I'm working more on the business than in the business. So I have other people that work in the business, and then I get to work on the business.
Right.
Meaning I get to work on marketing and doing things like this podcast and advertising and doing the financials and all that kind of the admin stuff, I guess you could say. So anyway, because of that, I'm always on my computer all the time. So I'm checking my email, and so I saw the email and I was like, it didn't say Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. It just said a popular Food Network show, and I was like, I bet that's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And so I sent an email back.
Did it look spammy, or did it just kind of? No, it was just vague.
No, it did. I mean.
Because I know.
These days there's so much spam.
Yeah, you get so much. Much stuff that.
Yeah, there was something about it that made me definitely believe it.
Right.
Like it was not spammy, and I don't know why, but I can't tell you why now. But it definitely seemed real. I remember the moment I saw it. I was actually sitting at Roosters at one of the outside tables. I was talking to I think my manager. Me and my manager sitting there talking, and I checked my email and I'm like, this is interesting. And I read her the email. I was like, I bet this is Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. And she was like, yeah, you should respond. I'm like, yeah.
Right now.
So I responded. And then the producer sent a message back that was like, yeah, well, let's get an interview. Because Guy wants to highlight small mom and pop local restaurants. He's not trying to do chains, and he's not, trying to do places that just serve everything out of a box. It's very strict criteria. You have to check certain boxes. You have to be no more than 2 locations. You can't be a chain or a franchise. You have to make most everything from scratch. They don't want to film somebody that just opens a can of something, and so they're looking for something very specific, and also you have to be open for more than a year, and so you have to meet certain criteria. So that we had to have an interview. So I scheduled this phone call with this producer, and we went through all of that. She was like, ask a bunch of questions. Do you do this? Do you do that? And I'm like, yes. So she was like, all right, great. I think you fit the profile. Let's schedule a phone call to go through the menu and create, because what they do is they create a presentation to give to Guy. They whittle it down to 12 restaurants. They create a presentation for each restaurant, and they present it to him, and he has final say, and he picks 6 out of the 12. And so this presentation is like a breakdown of each recipe of each dish that you want to present, which you're supposed to present 6 dishes. And so it's a breakdown, like literally every single thing that's in the dish down to the salt and pepper, how it's cooked. They want pictures of all the machines that you use for cooking. They want pictures of you and the staff. They want your bio. They want pictures of the restaurant, interior, exterior, everything, right? So anyway, we scheduled a 2-hour phone call to put together this presentation. It ended up being over 3-hour phone call because we just kept talking, and she just, they, like I said, it's very detailed of what they're putting in this presentation. So we picked 6 dishes out of the menu. We did all the recipes for all 6 dishes with the pictures and everything, and submitted the presentation. And then it was just holding our breath, waiting to hear if we got it or not. And it was maybe, I think, about 2 weeks. And I remember where I was also when I got the call that we were picked. I was at Publix with my daughter, and I started jumping up and down in the middle of the Publix aisle. My daughter was embarrassed. I was like, yes. But yeah, so we got the phone call and said, you were one of the 6 out of the 12. And also he loves to have a good backstory. And I think the backstory of my grandmother and growing up on the farm was part of it. And also he's a big supporter of military charities. And we do a charity in honor of my brother. We lost my brother in Afghanistan in 2009. Okay. And every Memorial Day, the week of Memorial Day, we donate a portion of our sales to a charity in his honor. And so I think that also kind of fed into the why he chose us to,
right.
So yeah, that was basically the story of how we got chosen. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I remember when Panini Pete was on he was on this podcast, and he mentioned he thought it was a prank call when they first, I guess they called him back when he was on the show. And I remember he sent him thinking it was, some of his buddies or whatever, messing with him. So it's funny how that happens. But what was how did the recording go? I mean, obviously you had to close for a couple of days, and what was the recording like?
So it all happened so fast. I mean, from the time that I got that phone call when I was at Publix telling me that we were going to be on it till the filming was done, it was like, let me see, it was probably about 3 weeks, which, I mean, is the blink of an eye. I mean, it was just like, it went by so fast. I mean, because like, once we found out we were going to be on it, we're like, oh no, we got a lot to do.
Yeah, you got to...
we got to make the place look, we got to, paint the walls, we got to clean it, we got to get some new equipment and just get ready, And so, and then the day came, and leading up to them showing up, there was a lot of back and forth with the director of the episode. He was a really cool guy too. Their whole crew was awesome, just a top notch, really professional. I mean, they've got it dialed in. They've been doing this for 15 years. Right. And the director of our episode and pretty much almost the whole crew has been with him since day one. So they've been doing this for like 15 years.
And they're having fun doing it, I'm sure.
Oh man, they have a lot of fun, and they're great. I think it's high stress too, because they're on a schedule. I bet. And they have to follow that schedule. When they say something's at 8:30, it's at 8:30. When they say something's going to happen at 9, it's at 9. I mean, on the dot. It's really, really impressive how they operate. But yeah, so I was back and forth with the director for that whole time leading up until them actually coming to film, and it was like, we need pictures of this, we need pictures of that, we need make sure you have this, make sure you have that. It was a long checklist of like, you need to have a pan with each ingredient, like down to the salt and pepper. Every little spice has to be in its own individual little container, and it's got to be in a pan, and it's got to be, labeled everything so it's very meticulous and particular how they do it. Because they're on a tight schedule and they don't want to mess around. They want you to have everything ready. And then they told us what days we were going to be filming, which meant we had to close those days. And this was in early June of last year. And so we closed one day for them to film kind of the B-roll stuff. So he wasn't there for that. Guy wasn't there. So it was a long day of just filming, making the dishes and the, different ingredients. And then that was a Saturday, and then we were closed Sunday. We're always closed Sunday. And then Monday was the day that he was there. And so we were closed that day, and he showed up, and I was with him for maybe 2.5 hours or something.
Okay.
And it was very professional. It was just very we're here to film this. We did some small talk, but it was off camera, but it was most of what our conversations happened were on camera.
Yeah.
Not everything went into the show, but because it's edited, but like we talked about my brother, on camera.
Okay.
But that didn't go into the show. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was a little bit disappointed because I was like, man, I really want to tell that story of my brother and tell the story about our charity. But at the same time, he contributed to our charity. In fact, on camera, he said, how much are you contributing this year? And I told him, and he said, I'm going to match your donation.
Oh, man, that's cool.
So he matched our donation. A couple days later, somebody from his philanthropy group called and said, where do we send the check? But I guess he didn't want to put that in the show because maybe he didn't want to seem like he was, kind of cashing in, or not cashing in, but I guess capitalizing on him donating to the charity or something. So that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
And he didn't put it in the show because it's he did it out of just the kindness of his heart, not to try to win
not
viewers
spotlight.
over. Yeah, not to be on the spotlight. Yeah. So, like I said, it was about 2.5 hours with him, and it was cool. I mean, it was it went by in the blink of an eye. It happened so fast. It's like I feel like from the day I found out we're going to be on it till he was standing in front of me, it was like a blink of an eye. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening.
Just one big blur.
It was a
at this point.
big blur.
Yeah.
It was a big blur, yeah. And it was just like, this is happening. Okay.
How intimidating is it to cook in front of him?
It wasn't necessarily intimidating to cook in front of him, but to do it while a bunch of people were watching, that was the intimidating part. It was because you got the whole...
How many people were back there, I guess, behind the camera?
Well, Pete was there. He came just to watch.
Yeah.
He wasn't in our episode. He was just watching from the sidelines. And then it was my whole staff that was there, and it was the customers that we had for the scene.
Okay, so they're back there.
Yeah, well, I guess they were kind of more outside. But as far as inside while we were filming, it was the crew, which was about 8-man, maybe 7 or 8-man crew, and then a couple other people just kind of watching, and then my staff and stuff. So, I guess that was the more the intimidating part, just knowing that all these people were watching and hoping I didn't say something really stupid. But as far as cooking in front of him, I wasn't necessarily intimidated.
Right, done it so many times that...
Yeah, it's
Especially
it is what it
burrito.
is. Yeah, I mean, it's
imagine you've done that so many times.
This is what we do. I mean,
Yeah,
this is the food we make. I mean, so it's, you like it or you don't. I don't know.
I couldn't believe how many ingredients go into the surf and turf burrito.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. I didn't realize either until we started doing it. When you have to break it down by each seasoning, you're like, wow, this is I felt like I was saying the same stuff over again. Like, here's the cumin, here's the da-da-da, here's the but yeah, it really is, a lot of elements to it, I guess.
Yeah. What are some other dishes on the menu that you feel like that need to be spotlighted, or shown a little bit, some must-have dishes on the menu?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's different. It depends on your individual taste and maybe the time of day. Like, we have this paleo plate that we have on the menu, which is all veggies and protein. And it's kind of like a no carb or low carb, low sugar kind of plate. But it's hugely popular, especially at lunchtime, because you can get a really great plate of fresh food, fresh cut veggies, grilled veggies, and meat, and whatever meat you want, and slaw and avocado and stuff. And you're going to love it, and you're going to be satisfied, but you're going to be able to go back to work and not be about to crash.
Yeah. Like
if you ate a sandwich or a burger or something, you're going to go back and want to lay on the couch, And so that's really popular at lunchtime. Of course, the tacos, we have a variety of a bunch of different tacos, from seafood to meat to veggies. And I mean, you just can't go wrong with any of the tacos. the carnitas pork, which goes on that sandwich, but we have it in a taco, or you can get it in other ways, on a salad even. And that's definitely something special. The way we do carnitas is a little different than your standard traditional carnitas, but I think it's really good actually. Which we slow cook overnight in its own fat, and then it's stored in its own fat, kind of like a confit. But then we take that when somebody orders the carnitas, we take it and we put it on the flat top. Now typically carnitas is going to be more like cubed and fried in like a deep fryer, but we don't have fryers at Roosters, so we do it on a flat top with just some fat on the grill, and it gets it like really nice and crispy on the outside, but still really tender, and it's not overcooked. It's not like sometimes carnitas can be like overcooked, dry and overcooked, and this is not. It's crispy on the outside, tender on the inside. So I think the carnitas is pretty special. Our seafoods, we get Gulf seafood, we get Gulf shrimp and mahi, and that's really great. I
think that's one of the biggest things that's most special about Roosters is the fact that you have Latin American dishes, but with a little Gulf Coast flair to it.
Gulf Coast flair, yep. And we definitely do that with our specials. We've even done gumbo with specials,
Yeah.
So we're not like. Honestly, it was my wife's idea to call it Latin American food, or add that to the our sign or whatever. And her reasoning was, we don't want to be pigeonholed to just one thing. We want to be able to kind of not be like tied down to one thing. Like, we have to do we have to just do Mexican.
Okay,
right?
as opposed to say Mexican or
and that saying Latin American was just a way to kind of open it up to like, well, we kind of do a little bit of anything. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, because Latin America is a huge area and it's got a lot of vast array of different influences. Even Italian, there's a ton of Italian influence in Latin America and Argentina and some
Caribbean.
parts of Central America, and then you got Caribbean. You'll have French influence and some of that, and so it just kind of opened it up to more variety, I guess you could say. And so we do definitely some Gulf specialties, I guess.
You mentioned slow cooking some of the meats overnight. How does that process work? I mean, do you have the equipment at your restaurant where you have like a timer where it's cooking in the middle of the night, so nobody's there?
Yep.
Okay.
We could not operate Roosters without our equipment called Alto Shams. They are the workhorse of the restaurant. Oh my! I don't even know how we would do it.
Yeah.
Because we have like I said earlier, we took over from the pita pit. They had a very small hood. If you know anything about restaurants have to have a industrial hood to suck up all the grease and the smoke and stuff. And so we're very limited on the cooking equipment that we can have underneath a hood. And so we have our flat top and our convection oven, but that's not near enough to cook enough food for this busy restaurant. And so when we first opened, somebody told me about this equipment called Alto Shams. They don't have to be under a hood. They contain all the smoke and heat within the equipment. It doesn't emit any smoke or vapors. And so it doesn't have to be under a hood. So thank God we found out about that. We got those, and they're amazing devices. They cook things low and slow. That's another thing. You can't do high heat cooking with these. It's got to be low heat cooking, which is great for what we're doing. So it goes low and slow. It has a timer. It's all electric. You set it to a certain temperature in a certain time, and then at the end of that time, it drops to a hold temperature. And so you can't mess it up. I mean, it's like foolproof. I mean, it's like at the end of the night, we put in our pork and brisket. Boom, hit the button. And then they come in the morning and pull it out, and it's perfect every time. You don't even have to think about it. We couldn't operate the restaurant without it. Actually, recently I invested in another Alto Sham, a bigger one, because we'd just gotten so busy that we couldn't keep up.
Right.
So it was like, we needed more. So actually, I just invested a lot of money in another one. But they're so worth it. And then also during service, they keep things warm. So we keep our beans and rice and chicken and pork and stuff warm.
Okay.
So that way we have backups for the line.
Yep. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, y'all got a really cool Cinco de Mayo event coming up.
Yep.
By the time this podcast airs, it's going to be right at, right the week before the event. So, tell us about it. You got a block party, you're going to closing off Dauphin Street.
Yep.
So I think it's definitely something that everybody's got to come out and go to.
For sure.
Talk about that.
So in years past, we've always done kind of, a little big Cinco de Mayo party. But we've never done anything like this. This will be the first year that we're expanding out into the street and making it a block party. I got permits with the city to block Dauphin Street. I got a band we're going to have out in the street. We're going to have tents. We're going to have a 28-foot grill trailer with grills and smokers and stuff. We're going to be having smoked brisket and grilled carne asada. We're going to have grilled Mexican street corn. We're going to have ceviche, tamales. We're going to have all this stuff outside so you can come enjoy Dauphin Street without the traffic, because like I said, it's going to be blocked off. It will be just foot traffic only. So you can come enjoy Dauphin Street, listen to some great live music from a local mariachi band called Andalegos. They're going to be entertaining everybody, and get, some grilled Mexican specialties like carne asada, Mexican street corn. And then inside we'll have our normal menu for dine-in on the inside as well. But the fun's going to be outside.
Okay.
We're going to have some bars out there, serving drinks, and it's going to be a real fun event. Like I said, in years past, we've always done a Cinco de Mayo thing, but not like this. The reason I decided to do it this year, I realized it's on a Sunday. It was several months ago. I was like, wait a minute, Cinco de Mayo is on a Sunday. I was like, that's interesting. And then also a couple places that did big Cinco de Mayo parties in Midtown and downtown are no longer here. We got Fuego used to do a big one, and they're not here anymore. And then El Papi used to do a big one, and they're not here anymore. And so I was like, there's kind of a vacuum.
There's a void there. Yeah.
There's a void there. I don't know of anybody really doing a big Cinco. I mean, I know some of the Mexican restaurants around are going to be doing it, but a lot of those are more out in Westmobile. And so I was like, there's really nothing downtown that's going to be doing it. So I was like, kind of perfect. Once again, perfect timing. Being a Sunday, I was like, I think we can get the street blocked off, which we did. And so it really all kind of came together.
Yeah.
Now, next year when it's not on a Sunday, I don't know. We'll have to. I'll work if it's popular and people really come out for it. We'll find a way to do something. We'll work with the city on it. But I could see it being more difficult on a weekday, just blocking off Dauphin Street.
Right.
It can be difficult, but we can do something. We'll figure something out. But for this year, it's going to be big. We're making it a big event.
Yeah, it sounds like the must thing, the biggest thing to do.
The must do event on
That's
Cinco
it.
de Mayo this year. Yeah, we're gonna have like a kids craft table set up. My kids' Montessori school is gonna be there with this kids craft table for doing crafts with kids. We're gonna have an agua fresca station for fresh like fruit drinks. Like I said, 2 different outside bars. The band playing, the outside grill trailer, plenty of seating for everybody. So it's going to be a great event. Yeah,
All right, I'll definitely be there.
Awesome. I hope so.
Well, me and the family.
Definitely family friendly. And I
Right.
should say it's from 12 to 6.
Okay,
This is not going to be a late night thing. It's going to be in the afternoon.
Yep.
It's on a Sunday, May 5th, and from 12 to 6.
All right, sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. You've been posting on Facebook a lot about a recent trip that you went to Texas and
Yes.
doing, I guess, research and development. Anytime you
R&D,
get
yep.
a chance to go to Texas and
Yep.
see what everybody else is doing. So talk to me about that trip and some places that you visited out there.
So one cool thing about owning a restaurant is I get to tie my vacations in with R&D. And so that's what we do. I have 2 kids, and so for their spring break, we always try to have a fun trip, take them somewhere fun and somewhere also that is known for Latin American food. In years past, we went to Miami one spring break. We went to St. Petersburg, Florida. Last week, we went to Austin, Texas. So my wife and I used to live in Austin before having kids. And my kids have never been. So I was like, this will be a great trip because we'll get to show them where we used to live. And it's a fun city, a lot of outdoor stuff to do. And of course, great restaurants, wonderful restaurants. And so we decided to make that our spring break trip this year, Austin, Texas. So we just got back a couple of days ago. We spent a week there. And literally we had an Airbnb with a kitchen, but we didn't cook any meals. I purposely was like, we're going to eat out every meal.
For sure.
There's so much to try there that, I mean, there were we tried some great places, but we didn't even, touch the tip of the iceberg of like all the great places around that area. And that city has exploded. We lived there in 2006 and the population was 750,000. Today it's 2.3 million.
Unreal.
It's unreal. It is exploded. The downtown skyscrapers they're probably 20 times as many skyscrapers as there was when I lived there in 2006. It's crazy.
That's
how much
insane.
it's grown. It is exploded. But the food scene is just as vibrant as ever, and it's just great restaurants. We had just some wonderful meals. So
That's cool.
yeah.
I think that's been a really cool episode. I really have enjoyed. I think you've given a lot of advice too to people who, I know there's a lot of people listening to this episode that work in the restaurant industry, managers, and I talk to them all the time that they listen to. So I'm sure they're going to be encouraged by your story.
I hope so.
Do you have any other advice for restaurant managers or employees right now that maybe they've got aspirations one day to become a restaurant owner? Any advice for them?
Yeah, be really diligent about what your dreams are and trying to accomplish them, but don't be so rigid that you're not willing to bob and weave, I guess you could say, and go with the flow. So you need that balance of like sticking to your ideas and your dreams, but at the same time being willing to relax, take your time, and go with the flow. And just know that when things happen, sometimes it's for a reason, and that you need to just get up every day and just try to be better than you were the day before, and just push on and make things happen. I mean, because nothing came from nothing. I mean, you gotta put stuff in to get stuff out, right? It's the law of the universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I firmly believe in the universal law is, you got to put in to get out, right? And so you just got to get out there. And if you really want to do it, you got to do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. But don't be afraid to make mistakes, and don't be afraid to stumble and fall. But if you do, you just get back up the next day and just keep going.
Yeah.
Because that's definitely what happened to me. I mean, there was a lot of stumbling, a lot of falling, and a lot of perseverance and a little bit of luck. Luck plays a big part of it too. Timing and luck, and but as long as you keep trying, something will happen.
Yeah, that's good stuff. We were talking also before we started recording about you have opportunity now to franchise Roosters.
Yep. Well, speaking about what we just talked about, I would like to help other people achieve a dream. A lot of people have a dream, like I had, of being my own boss, and making my own decisions and getting to do things my own way. But not everybody, a lot of people might have that dream, but not everybody maybe wants to go through the crap you have to go through to get to that point. They want to have something kind of already set up for them, and that's where a franchise comes in. It's for that person that wants to be their own boss, has that dream of running their own business, and getting to live and die by their own decisions. But at the same time, they would like somebody to kind of give them a roadmap, and that's what. When you buy into a franchise, you're buying into a roadmap. This is how we do it, and this is how we've been successful. And now we are going to teach you and help you take our form. We already had to go through all the crap of how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I create this recipe? How do I serve this? What kind of equipment do I need to buy? How do I manage staff? I mean, we've already done all that. And now we can teach you how to do that for yourself with our concept. And I think we have a great concept. It's very efficient, and since day one, I've been all about efficiency and making things great, tasting and fresh, but also how do we serve it fast, and how do we make it efficient, and how do we maximize our labor and how do we get a lot of output with very smart input, I guess you could say.
And maximize on your good branding that you've done and marketing stuff. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we've worked really hard on branding and marketing, and all the way up to being on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. So, I mean, I would love to be able to be a kind of a mentor and teach other people how we did it, and help them do it. Now, there's certain criteria that these potential people would have to have. I mean, we would want somebody with at least some restaurant experience, and the more the merrier. And then, of course, they would have to have access to some capital to get going, and a few other things. But I would love to sit down and talk to anybody that would like to talk to me about it.
Cool. All right, so they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, and get in touch with me.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to give my information out from this email and website and all that stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been good stuff, man. I've really enjoyed this.
Awesome.
So,
thank you.
Before we go, though, I got another segment of the podcast called Meat and Three. So now we've gotten into the meat of the podcast. I got 3 questions for you, just three random questions.
Let's do it.
First one is going to be, so what restaurants do you and your wife frequent around town the most?
I tend to go with the, kind of more rustic, I guess you could say, authentic ethnic places. So Pho 88, it's been around a long time on Azalea, and it's Vietnamese, and now there's also a Laotian aspect to it too. But it's been around for a long time, and we've been frequenting it as long as I've been in Mobile, about 20 years. But it recently transitioned to new owners about a year or so ago, and I think it's kind of the best it's ever been.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's got some really cool dishes on there that are just, you're not going to really get anywhere else around here. They have a whole fried pompano with like this tamarind sauce. I love it. It's so good. And then the kind of newer Indian restaurant, Biryani Pot.
Yep.
Really, really good. Very, I think from what I've been told, very authentic to southern India, which is where you find the spicy Indian food.
That one got mentioned on the last episode that we had with
really good.
Tony Reynolds at the Battle House.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Biryani Pot's great. Seven Spice and Jerusalem Cafe, both, that if we're feeling like Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, we like both those. And then as far as downtown goes, Noble South, I eat there all the time. It's right down from Roosters.
Yep.
And Chris is a great chef, and Josh are great chefs. It's super consistent and just great. I just always love it. I always clean my plate.
Yep.
And so I go there a lot. And
that's a great lunch spot.
Great lunch spot. You can't get, I think, a better, because you're going to get the same quality ingredients as you would on the dinner menu,
right,
but at the lunch price.
Half the price.
You can't beat it. Dinner's great too, but man, lunch is where the deal's at.
Yep.
Mediterranean Sandwich Company, man. Vlad was one of my inspirations when I opened, way earlier in this conversation when you asked me about, my thought process of opening Roosters. That was one of the inspirations. I saw this guy. He had just opened Mediterranean Sandwich Company, that little place downtown, and this guy, came from another country. It's so funny that you see so many successful business owners in America come from another country and they barely, speak the language, and they're coming here and making successful businesses. You know why? Because of grit and hard work.
Yep.
That's really it. Nobody's going to hand it to you, man. You got to do it yourself. And so you see these guys like Vlad come in and just create this like little hole in the wall gyro shop. And it's killer, and it's great, and he, and so everybody loved it. And now, man, look at him now, man. He's done so well.
That's why I had him on. I couldn't believe eight locations now.
Man, so successful,
crazy,
and a really nice guy. I mean, and there's been several times over the years where I've come to him for advice, for restaurant business advice, and he's been so generous to give me advice. So, yeah, big fan of Mediterranean. And I'm trying to think. I know there's some other places. Downtown, Dropout Bakery Company.
You frequent there a lot. Yeah.
Great pastries. I'm a sucker for pastries, and great pastries there.
That's why I tell people, just get anything there. It doesn't matter what you get. There's not one thing you need to get there. Just get anything.
It just doesn't matter. Whatever they have that day. I tell you what, Moe's Barbecue. That's actually one of my inspirations for franchising Roosters. I said, look, I love the way that Moe's has you wouldn't know that that's a franchise.
No, you'd never know.
If you just walked in there, you think it was a funky little local barbecue place. It's a franchise. And so that's the model I want to take with Roosters. I don't want to be on the side of the interstate, just another cookie cutter, not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's just not, I'm wanting to model my franchise more after Moe's, where I want you to be able to walk into Roosters in any city where there's Roosters and not really know it's a franchise.
That's right.
I want it to have its own little fingerprint, its own little funky local vibe, and be in kind of downtown areas like this.
It's this Moe's is completely different than the one in Orange Beach or Tuscaloosa.
They're not all cookie cutter, and that's what I want Roosters. I want them to be individual to that. Obviously within our boundaries, and we want to be consistent. And that's the thing about Moe's. It's always consistent. Yep. Now they're all a little different, but they're all consistent. And that's what I want to do with Roosters. And so I love Moe's too. I think it's great barbecue. Where else around here? There's Southwood Kitchen. That's in Daphne.
Right.
I love Jeremiah. I love Southwood. So all his success is definitely well deserved. I want to try it now. Speaking of barbecue, he just reopened Ben's.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried it yet, but I definitely.
I've been out there. It's pretty good. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I remember the Ben's back in the day, the old Ben's.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, man. There's just so many. This place is. It used to be, if you remember, 20 something years ago when I first moved to Mobile, it was really like not very much around.
We sure didn't come downtown to eat.
No, yeah, it was a ghost town. it is just vastly changed over that time I've been here, and I'm so happy to be a small part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many great restaurants. I know I left off a bunch.
Oh, of course, that's fine too. Well, let's take a question. So, how about a couple of hidden gems? Maybe some under the radar places that don't get a lot of love. Some hidden gems that you go to. Or
I would say 488, the first one I mentioned, would be in that category.
That.
It's been there a long time, and it's got its little loyal clientele, but it's not. I never really hear people talk about it, it did go through a time where it kind of went downhill a little bit a few years ago, and that probably scared some people off. But this new owner, man, I think it's the best it's ever been. Everything we've had the last few times we've been there has been really good. Trying to think of what else I would call a hidden gem in this area. Can't really think of any hidden gems. I mean, I think that's the first one that pops in my head is 488.
Yeah, I think that's it. Mm-hmm. All right, next one is one dish in Mobile everyone needs to have.
Oh Lord, but not from Roosters.
It can be.
Oh no, I'd feel bad to I don't know. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and announce that we got some nappy nominations.
Okay, yeah, because it'll be out by the time this.
I think it'll be out by the time this airs. Yeah, and so we actually got 8 nominations, and that's one awesome. Of them. I know, I'm excited. So one of them that I think is really cool is we got nominated for one of our dishes, the torta de carnitas, actually being a dish you have to try before you die.
Nice.
And so there you go. There's one, the torta de carnitas from Roosters. But if I have to say another dish, here in Mobile, something that you have to try that maybe most people I mentioned it earlier actually from 488, the fried pompano with the tamarind sauce.
Okay. All right, it's going on the list.
And now it's not going to be for everybody because some people don't like eating fish with bones. I grew up, like I said, on this farm, fishing in the pond, catching brim and bass, and that's the way we ate fish. We ate fish. We might cut the head off, but we ate the bones and everything, right? And so I grew up eating that way, so I love it. I sit there and I'll pick the meat off the bone. I'm in hog heaven. But now some people are not going to want to do that. So for some people, they would not like that dish at all.
Yeah.
But I love it because it's like this crispy fish and this tamarind. It's like a kind of a sweet tart. Savory kind of sauce with onions and peppers. Oh man, it's so good. Yeah,
that's good. All right, next segment of the show is called Chris's Dishes, and this is where I talk about the best dish that I've had lately. And if you've got a dish that you've had lately that you want to shout out, you can do that. But mine is we went to Raises.
Raises awesome.
With my wife's birthday was a couple weeks ago.
Great.
And went to Raises for the first time, and yeah, man, it was phenomenal.
Yeah,
it immediately went to top of the list.
That's why they're so popular.
Baldwin County, they are. Yeah, yeah. You got to make a reservation.
And also, they're just super nice people too.
That's right.
I mean, that's a part of it. Is like, I mean, the food's great, but also you want to support them.
That's right.
And honestly, I attribute some of our success to that. I think, I think our food's good, but also just I knew a lot of people in downtown, and people were excited for me, somebody who was their waiter one day.
Yeah,
this guy was waiting on us, and now he's getting to open his own restaurant. I think that was like appealing.
That emotional connection for sure.
Mm-hmm. And Ray's is the same way. He was their sushi chef at Chuck's, and it's like to see this guy go from working for somebody else to having his own business. People love that.
Yeah. And he's been all over social media with pictures of his family, you know, like you want to support somebody like that.
Supporting their beliefs.
I think that's that emotional connection is huge.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, for sure.
But so all right, so I had the sea roll sushi is what I had. Okay. Now it was huge. It had baked scallops, smoked salmon, shrimp, bacon, onion, spice. I don't know how it fit into a roll. I don't even know how I ate it, honestly, when it came out. I was not.
Man,
I'm
starving right now. That sounds good.
It was phenomenal. We started out with the meal with the Brussels sprouts, and we got the Jubilee shrimp. But I was probably most surprised when they had the white chocolate bread pudding on the menu, and I got it. And it was the exact same white chocolate bread pudding from Five.
From Five, yep.
Yep. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And so that really that made my night there, because I thought the white chocolate bread pudding was gone forever.
And now you can go over there and get it.
And now you can get it at Raises. I don't know. You may be able to get it at Chuck's. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe
it's all the same people,
on a secret menu, maybe, or something like that. But Raises definitely has it, and,
awesome.
and it was superb.
I love their pork belly appetizer at Raises. That was a very memorable dish that we had there. Yeah.
So have you had a dish lately that you want to shout out?
I'm torn between mentioning something in Austin because I was just there and we ate out the entire time we were there, and there was some awesome, amazing food. Or should I mention something?
Well, there's
local?
no limitations. I mean, last guest he mentioned something that he cooked at home. So.
Oh well, I made a nice pork ragu Sunday night. I was so excited because we got home late Saturday night, and I was so excited to cook on Sunday because literally the whole time we were in Austin, we ate out.
Yeah.
Which was the
so
plan.
The home cooked meal,
but it's like, man, it's gonna be
sure.
nice to sit at home and have a home cooked meal. So I made a pork ragu. That was really good.
All right, so pork ragu. All right, so give us one for Austin and for Mobile and your home.
Okay. So Austin, our number one, and I mentioned this in the Facebook post I made, our number one out of the entire week was Suerte, which is kind of more elevated Mexican, modern Mexican, you should say, which a lot of times I'm scared of that because there's been times in the past where I've went to places that, this modern, just really elevated, expensive Mexican, and you go and it's like, man, I would have had just as good, if not a better meal at just some little hole-in-the-wall family place. You know, it's like, it's okay, but it's like it's a lot of money.
They overthought it, maybe.
Yeah, overthought it. Yeah, and underwhelming, I guess. Overcomplicated it and made it underwhelming. And so I was a little bit nervous about going there because I was like, man, I hope this isn't another one of those places. And it was not, man. It was fun. I don't know even how to describe it exactly. It was just every dish was like the perfect balance of traditional with a modern like quality, you know, or I shouldn't say modern quality, but like an elevated quality to something that was, they didn't stray too far from traditional, but they just made it really, really good, you know, if that makes sense. And also, side note, CBS, there's a CBS show called The Dish. They were filming at the restaurant while we were there. We didn't know. Cool. So our appetizer got brought out, and there was a camera crew following the appetizer. We're like, "What's going on?" And the server's like, "Oh yeah, there's this show called The Dish. They're filming here." And so every dish that got brought to our table came with a camera crew. So I guess we're going to be on TV again.
Yep. You're going to be
I need to
Food
look
Network now on CBS.
Yeah, be on CBS. And so I guess everything we had there was so good. I guess the carne asada is what I ordered as my main entree, and I mean that was like, it was in this like, it was, I don't know, it's hard to describe, just perfectly cooked steak, and it was on this like kind of a black bean puree with like this kind of spicy tomato sauce, and then it came with like charred greens, and then tortillas, and of course they made their own. Everybody in Austin makes their own tortillas, so but these were really good hand pressed tortillas. The waitress said they have one woman, that's all she does. She just makes hand pressing tortillas all night long. And so you made your own little tacos. And then my daughter got the carnitas, same kind of thing. Tortillas come on the side, you make your own tacos, and just perfectly crisp cooked carnitas. Like I was saying earlier about ours, it kind of reminded me of ours, where it's like crispy but tender, you know, not dried out. And this perfect sauce. It's just, I don't know. It's just a great experience. So I guess I would have to say, that. And then local, I'm trying to think, because we were gone in Austin all last week, so I'm trying to think what we had, where I ate the week before. Probably Noble South. I think I had lunch there one of the days before I went to Austin, and of course just cleaned my plate. Yeah. Got the kind of meat and three kind of things, right. You know, pork chop and some stuff, and just every time it's always. So I think by now I've gotten all the meats that are there. Yeah. Just about gone through all of them. Yep. Which one am I going to try this time? The catfish, the pork chop. Actually, I think it was the catfish I got. I got the blackened catfish. Yeah. And so yeah, I'll say that. I'll give a shout out to my neighbor. There you go. That's right. Man, it's been a great episode. I appreciate you coming on today. Awesome, man. Chris, thank you for having me. Absolutely. And, I'll be excited to add Roosters into the Bienville Bites. Yeah, I'm excited about that too. Food tour. We'll work out the details on that. All right, we're going to do that. That's going to be exciting. Mm-hmm. And everybody, come to the Cinco de Mayo event. I think it's going to be great. Get in touch with me if you want to talk about franchises. And okay. Yeah. Just in case somebody doesn't know the location, where how do you describe where you're located to somebody that doesn't know? Well, for most people, I'll say we're next to the Peanut Shop. Yeah, Peanut Shop's been everybody knows that. 1947. Almost everybody. Rarely do I meet somebody that doesn't know the Peanut Shop. So we're right next to the Peanut Shop. We're at 211 Dauphin Street. We're in between the Peanut Shop and the Soul Kitchen. So right there in the heart of downtown, right in between Bienville Square and Cathedral Square. So
Yep.
can't miss this.
Best location.
Can't miss this great location.
Yep. All right. Appreciate it, Frankie. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thank y'all for listening to the Port City Plate podcast, and we'll catch you on the next episode.